claims title number 3.
Well, after a dominant sprint display and locking out the front row of the grid for the Grand Prix today, one might have expected it to be an easy 1-2 for Red Bull Racing, but it seems that Red Bull, Formula One, McLaren and Lando Norris himself hadn't quite expected Lando Norris to be as quick as he was. Hello, folks, and welcome to your post-race show with me, Lando Norris, and him, Oscar Piastri. Ah, not really. Thank you. Thanks very much. Lando, an exceptional drive to P2. Max Verstappen, a dominant winner today. Alex Brundle, and a great Grand Prix. So much fun.
Oh, it's all action, wasn't it? I filled up pages of notepad, like no one's business trying to keep up with that one. Brilliant performance from Lando, peerless performance from Verstappen, but so much great racing behind as well. Wheel-to-wheel stuff, all the way through to last place on occasion.
And Joe Gagnon getting a special ovation from the crowd at the end of the race. We've got our first driver guests ready and waiting to come on the show. Alex, you can come on. Alex Albon, come on in. Tough afternoon out there, man. Was it fun?
It was boring for me. I don't know how it was for you, but apparently it was a good race.
It was great fun.
Race?
It was great fun.
Where was it good? I couldn't see it.
Fernando
clearly.
coming back through after doing really weird strategy.
Yes.
And lots of overtaking moves, kind of people out of position. Max was Max, but Lando holding on, doing a really great job for P2. Yeah, it was a fun race, man.
Okay, good.
Busy in the midfield. Very busy in the midfield.
Very busy. I mean, I was in an Alpine sandwich, which is apparently an Alpine baguette.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
You dropped the first set of mediums really early.
Yes. I felt like I didn't need to, but we were trying to cover off Yuki, and which didn't actually inevitably work because the undercut here was huge. It was amazing. These tyres this weekend have been struggling, is the most diplomatic word to use, and they obviously increased the Pirelli minimum tyre pressures again last night, which, I mean, the tyres last literally 4 corners out the pit lane. You feel really good through 2, 3, and then they're gone again.
It's been really high at the front this weekend, hasn't it? So
exactly. That's what I mean. So it's so high that it's literally just tearing the tyre up. And safety, but it's painful. Anyway, that's same for everyone. And I mean, we're putting so much flap in the car. Basically, normally you take out flap for a race car, but you just got to keep it in and try and deal with the oversteer.
I know after the last couple of races, it's been a difficult time for Williams, particularly having lost so many of those upgrades that you had in Japan. Did the car feel where you wanted it to this weekend? Because I know you were able to bring some upgrades that maybe been sort of cobbled back together again.
Honestly, I don't think the upgrades have been revolutionary. I think they've been more of a subtle balance tweak than anything else. This track, we've never gone well in long corners. So if you think about Barcelona, if you think about this circuit, I know the last time they drove this was in 2019, but if you look at our 2019 results, it's very, very depressing. It's something about long corners. We tend to have a car that's a little bit difficult, entry, mid and exit. And so when you have wind...
That's conclusive.
But what I'm trying to say is, when it's different entry, mid and exit, and the corner is long, you go through each bit quite a lot, and it becomes quite difficult to balance the car. And we've been struggling to balance it, medium, low speed, high speed, and we call it spinning plates. Trying to get an average balance that's good enough in low speed, good enough in high speed, but it's not ideal. And we've been chasing that all weekend.
Thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate it. We'll see you in Miami. Thank you, Alex.
I don't know what that was, by the way.
What was?
The props.
It was called Lando and Oscar.
That was it.
That's it. I don't know why we did that either. Tough day for Williams. Logan Sargent with a penalty, what looked ultimately to be a bit of an operational error from the Williams team, who are so dialed in with James Vowles to data. With Logan Sargent coming out behind, but ultimately taking position from Nico Hulkenberg. Sam Collins back in the studio is going to have a closer look.
Well, the spinning pace wasn't ideal for Alex Albon, as we just heard, but also what wasn't ideal was this moment that got a penalty for the American Williams driver. Have a look at the line on the pit exit. We've got the Haas leaving the pits after a pit stop. The safety car is out on track, which means you're not allowed to overtake. This line at pit exit determines who's ahead. Have a look at the Haas here. You can see it's just crossing the line, and at the same moment, Logan Sargent is probably 15, 20 centimetres away from the line. At this point, it's crucial to note, neither driver can actually see one another. So if we watch the Haas come out of the pits, you just see, as it crosses the line, the driver here is looking to the left. He can't see the Williams. He knows the Williams is there. He's on the radio to the team saying, who was in front? Am I in front, or is the Williams in front? Logan Sargent's doing the same back to his team. And eventually, as the laps continued and unfurled, no one worked it out. And the FI determined correctly that the Haas was in front, but Sargent goes through the corner and takes the position and overtakes under the safety car, and that results in a 10-second penalty, even though nobody actually knew who was ahead. So it is a little bit harsh, but it is the rules. So the rules is the rules, Alex. Will, sorry.
Alex and Will. Thank you, Sam. Rules is rules, as you say, but one rule needs to be looked at post-race, and that again involves Hulkenberg, because let's deal with this one first. So behind the safety car, when Max was bringing them around at the end of the first safety car, we had contact. Ultimately, Lance Stroll locking up his brakes, ramming into the back of Daniel Ricciardo, popping off into Oscar Piastri. And Nico Hulkenberg, with all of that, kind of had to make his way past the cars that were crashing into each other and appears to have made up position there. Not that he could do much about that. He's going to have to go and see the stewards after the race. But Lance Stroll, 10-second penalty for this incident. Was that merited? Do you think he just should have had his wits about him more?
Yeah, I think it's fair enough, to be honest. I mean, obviously you're operating with carbon brakes in these cars. When they do get cold, then it's tricky sometimes to manoeuvre, but mitigating factors very few to be making contact with the car ahead under the safety car. What they're all trying to do there is you're almost on the rack stops of right-hand lock in that hairpin. Nobody wants to take evasive action to the inside, because when the car ahead of them goes, they don't want to be caught tight with understeer and get left behind by the pack. So that's why you sit there thinking, why don't they just drive directly to the apex inside? But then they know that they're going to lose out when someone inevitably goes. But still, you know, in attention, you've got to make sure that you're not running into the car ahead.
Intelligently, Aston Martin brought Stroll in during the Grand Prix, got him to serve that penalty, so he didn't have to serve it at the end, and he ended up finishing ahead of another driver who did have a penalty that he had to serve at the end of the race, was Kevin Magnussen for biffing into Yuki Tsunoda. Ultimately, Magnussen got a puncture, Tsunoda got a rear puncture, and that put him out of the race.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, the stewards have done a great job today. We're very, very quick to criticise when we think their decisions aren't correct. I think they've made a couple of really sharp decisions. For Magnussen there, just a little bit aggressive on the throttle up the inside, lost the car slightly, put Tsunoda out of the race, so there's consequence to it as well. And as JP said in commentary, slam dunk, no-brainer penalty.
You say the stewards made sharp decisions today. One I probably have to pull you up on is the decision to cover by yellow flags, then virtual, then full safety car.
That's the race director. But yes.
For the stricken car, yes, well, I was going to say FIA. The stricken car of Valtteri Bottas, which did bring about that safety car in the end. A driver in a stricken car at one point standing next to his car, yes, under a double waved yellow, but at a very heavy braking point on the circuit. Were you surprised that it was held first under double yellows for so long and that it wasn't a full safety car called earlier?
Totally agree. You know, every racing driver looking at that will think, wow, there's a guy standing there in the runoff with cars going by at sort of almost racing speed. It would have been nice to see that put out faster, at least in terms of a virtual safety car, if not a full.
So bad day for Valtteri Bottas, a PU issue with that car. Ultimately got stuck in gear. The marshals did their very best to try and extricate it. I hate to see the looks on the Sauber faces while they were rocking it backwards and forwards, trying to remove it there to no positive effect, ultimately having to be taken away by other means. A really bad day as well for V-Carb. Obviously, Tsunoda out due to that incident with Magnussen. And then Ricciardo having to retire the car. Such a massive hit from Stroll. They tried to continue, but the damage to the floor, the diffuser, just too much.
It's one of those no fault or very little fault of their own. Ricciardo made slight contact with Piastri ahead of him as well in that snafu down at turn 14. But yeah, just a really unfortunate day being taken out. But that's the kind of thing that happens, you know, when you are like where Yuki Tsunoda has been throughout the weekend, trying to battle through. When you don't qualify well, one of the earliest things you get told in junior single-seaters is you've got to qualify well because you've got to try and get results, but also to keep cars out of trouble. And when you're always trying to battle through, it's the kind of thing that happens.
Will VCARB take some positivity from this weekend, though? Even though Yuki qualified P19 for both races, he looked punchy in the Grand Prix today, made some moves, made some passes, and Daniel was just on the edge of the points for the majority of the contest. Could have been a great day for them.
Yeah, he did. He was moving through in his typical sort of fashion with gusto, wasn't he, Tsunoda? And they'll be most buoyed, I think, by the fact that Ricciardo seems to be back to his best, and like you say, on the brink of points, and points are what they need at the moment to keep on responding. They have had Tsunoda up in the points back in Japan, but they need both drivers just trying to nudge into the edge of the points all the time so that when the inevitable does happen at some stage, they can snatch some proper stuff and move them into the mid-table.
Magnussen versus Stroll, with their penalties looming large over both of their heads, ended up giving us probably one of the best battles we've ever seen for last place. That was thrill fest.
It really was, wasn't it? It's kind of two drivers, you sense, who realised they weren't going to get that much from the day, and a bit of fun was it. Yeah. But great respectful racing, must be said, between the pair of them. I'm very impressed that the car of Lance Stroll held up to the impact with the rear of Daniel Ricciardo. He basically drove over the front wing, which kind of did a Ferrari suspension, didn't it? And sort of appeared impervious to damage after that incident.
We've lost these very fragile Formula One cars and replaced them with unbreakable ones. Talking about braking cars, Joe, I really don't know what happened to Joe today. We're going to hope to talk to him a little bit later in the show. Was making the moves in the early laps, then suddenly dropped to the back of the field. We saw his front wing just give way, seemingly in the outwash, as he was making the move towards the end of the race, getting past Magnussen for position. But a strange day for Zhou Guanyu.
Well, you spotted earlier on in the race that he might have made contact in the early laps with Yuki Tsunoda.
We were looking out of our office window down into the final corner, and he'd been putting the moves on in the early laps. And I saw him come out of the final corner right on Tsunoda's rear wing, pop to the outside, right by the grandstand, to try and make a move past. And then he disappeared from sight, and we didn't see him again on the international feed until he came. We looked again out the window, and he came through, and he was now behind Magnussen. So I don't know exactly what happened to him and how that happened.
Well, the delamination of the left side of the front wing was definitely not through contact with the Haas.
No.
So it follows that he's had contact earlier on in the race, and then eventually the wash of air finished it off. In any case, it could well have had an effect on his race. It's great to see the adoration of the crowd here. It's great to hear them cheer when he comes in the pit lane, cheer again when he comes out of the pit lane, cheer when he makes a move, cheer when he defends a move. Fantastic, but he would have liked to take a better result away for sure.
I have just heard that we will be having Zhou Guanyu on the show a little bit later, although he is in so much demand. It may be once the sun has set, and the show's been going on for about 3 hours, but hopefully we'll get him to you in sensible time. You can, however, hear from Nico Hülkenberg. A battling day for him, which brought him home in the points, crucial for Haas on a weekend where they brought updates. They appeared to work. Obviously, that investigation hanging over his head, but let's hear from him now.
Nico, you said ahead of the race you expected a tough race, and yet it looked very strong out there. How was it for you?
It was still tough. Still, I mean, it wasn't it's never a walk in the park, but I think it was well managed, well controlled from our side. So, you know, very positive and happy about that we got that 1 point, which was up for grabs. You know, but it shows one of the top 5 cars had a problem, and obviously that's the spot we kind of stole because of it. Otherwise, you know, it's not really possible to race with them. But it also just shows that, you know, we need to have a perfect Saturday and quali and Sunday to be able to be where we are.
Miami up next, Haas's home Grand Prix. What can we expect from you guys there? Yeah.
1 of 3, yeah.
1 of 3.
Obviously the straight into another sprint weekend, always challenging. I expect a hot race again. So not sure quite what to expect. I mean, I liked it there. Last year was my first time, so just happy to go.
Cool. Good luck. Thank you.
A pretty happy Nico Hulkenberg. Alpine have been called to the stewards, we are hearing, to try to explain exactly what went down in the pit stop with Pierre Gasly, where we saw one of the team's mechanics get hit by a rear tyre. The team have reported to us mechanic is absolutely fine, which is great news and the most important thing of all. Now, Alpine have to try and explain exactly what went down. And from the replays that we got, I don't know if you could make head or tail of what happened. They were struggling with the rear right to get it on. Multiple attempts. I don't know if Gasly had spun the rear axle and the tyre had flipped off, if they dropped him down and the tyre bounced off. I couldn't see.
So it looked like they dropped the car on its belly. So either one of two things has happened. Either they've not waited for the call to drop that car on the rear jack, or the car has fallen off its rear jack for Gasly, resulting in that issue. So yeah, but it's a horrible thing, something we really don't like to see.
No.
Rotational, unprotected elements in the pit lane are our worst case scenario, and the best thing to hear from that is that the mechanic is A-OK.
Yeah, Alpine very close to points today. Esteban Ocon in P11. So upgrade on his car, a new floor, things going seemingly a little bit better for Alpine in the Grand Prix today. And they will take a lot of solace from that, I think, after what's been a pretty difficult, pretty horrible start to the season for them.
In what has seemed to be a terrible weekend.
We'll get to that in a minute. The man of the moment, the man of the day, Zhou Guanyu. Hey, you kept the crowd enthralled throughout that one. I know it wasn't the result you would have wanted, but how much fun did you have out there?
Well, I knew like 10 laps or 15 laps to go, we box again. I was like, maybe it's for the crowd. I don't know, but I was just keep asking how far we are to the guys ahead. But yeah, just very emotional weekend. Of course, as much as I try to stay focused on my job, it's difficult to, seeing how the crowd is cheering and just fantastic.
Can you hear that inside the car? It's so loud every time you come in and out of the pit lane.
Unfortunately, not when the engine is running, but when I'm in the garage, when I'm even driving through the pit lane, doing my practice starts, I can see them cheering. And for me, for my team, just a very emotional weekend, and I never expect to have such a crowd like that.
I can imagine how emotional it must have been, because even for us, standing on the grid with you before the race, seeing you reduce the tears after the race, that noise from the crowd, even for us, it sent the hairs on the back of your arm up. It's like a sonic boom. It just hits you in the chest.
Yeah, that's what happened exactly once I got my helmet out on my in-lap. I mean, I got a little bit of goosebumps already Friday, getting into the garage, but then seeing the whole crowd after my in-lap, try to wave for them, and seeing all them, clapping their hands, cheering for me. I can hear that on the coming lap, and yeah, all this emotion just get to me at that point. So yeah, everything just have to let it out.
There have been stages of this weekend where the cars look much stronger than it has throughout the rest of the year. Is that something you can take through the year now? Particularly sprint qualifying was exceptionally good. Have you found something, do you think, that's going to help moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really bring much upgrade. The only thing for this weekend, of course, I was able to have my normal, let's say, the front wing was missing Suzuka. So I see the potential of the car. I see we're fighting a lot more comfortably into Q2, but then Q3 there's a potential. Valtteri did a great job. So it's great to see the team progress, and pit stop. I need to give a heads up for the guys,
Yeah, great job.
Considering we did 3 pit stops that race, and most of them was clean, so.
We're going to have to let you go soon. I know that you're incredibly busy. I want to ask you 2 quick questions before you go. Firstly, what happened in the early laps of the race? You were making positions, making moves, got up there with Tsunoda, and then the next time you came through, you were back behind Magnussen. What happened there, and how did it affect your early
Yeah,
run?
I was fighting quite a lot, and then I think in one of the corners, I quite lost the car a bit, and then I got Tsunoda got by me, also Kevin. So
Okay.
it was tricky, because if you look my first thing, I was really struggling with the tire temperature, and everything was getting a lot overheated, and then I had to stay calm, because I can't, afford, finishing the race at the back of the grid. I need to get back to where I started at least. So drove my heart out this race. Unfortunately, P14, but yeah, could be more.
Before you go, I want you to go back 20 years to when you were sitting in that grandstand. dreaming that this one day might be, well, I don't even know if that was the dream 20 years ago, but you see Formula One for the first time and you see your heroes. What would you tell that little kid now about what's going to happen to him in 20 years?
I would say he made it, you know, he made it. There's no other sentence to describe. It's been such a tough journey, like even for me, have no one involved in manufacturing to help me to get my way to Formula One. So racing all the championship, move out very early stage of my career, try to race against the best young junior drivers. And yeah, got the first contract, first career, first season, but then no home race. So 3 years, finally get back here. So I'm looking forward to many more. So I'm going to give it everything for the remaining season.
Well, you're an inspiration, not just to the folks in the grandstand, I know, but to anyone who watches Formula One in your home country and around the world. An incredible story, man. I'm so happy for you. So happy this weekend's been what you hoped it would be.
Thank you, guys. It's been amazing.
Thanks, buddy. Cheers for coming on. Appreciate it, Joe. Thanks, mate. Just the most humble, gracious guy. The power of dreams, it's something so strong.
And he's changed not a bit since we saw him come through the junior ranks. Made his way through to Formula One. It was brilliant to watch him rise through the ranks of motorsport, and now having the opportunities he's had to cling on for to race in his own Grand Prix.
It's a proper lad, isn't he? Proper lad. Right. From Zhou Guan Yu, who got the biggest cheers of the day, to the driver who got the second biggest cheers of the day, but my word, they were pretty loud as well. Lewis Hamilton has a massive fan base here. He had to start from P18, but put on a brilliant show in a car that he described as being horribly slow. He still fought his way up well into the points. A great day in the end for Lewis Hamilton.
Well, Lewis, judging by team radio, it sounded like balance was quite hard to come by today. Did you enjoy the race, at least going from where you were on the grid to points finish?
Not particularly. I mean, I was pretty slow. But I mean, the few battles I had was okay. But I mean, I was not particularly quick today.
You're a creative guy. You're a songwriter. You're a designer. Talk to me about that.
I'm not a car designer. I wish I was.
Talk to me about the move on Nico Hülkenberg, turn 9. I didn't know you could overtake there, but do those kind of moves scratch your creative itch, like inventing moves in different parts of the track?
I've done it a million times there, so it wasn't particularly. I appreciate saying it's creative, but I mean, it was pretty straightforward. I mean, everyone's, it was textbook, to be honest.
Thank you.
Are we going to see the old bouncy Lewis back at any point before he gets to Ferrari?
I hope so. I mean, that was a great drive. He really suffered with the car. They started on the soft tyre, of course, from the back of the field. Really suffered with the car at the beginning. But it seemed to get stronger and stronger, didn't it, through the race, until actually the pace was decent at the end. It's so palpable, the difference in Lewis's demeanour. I think it's the biggest of any driver in the field, between a good day and a bad day. And it's great to see him when he does feel like the car's underneath him. That's clearly still not now, though, is it?
I mean, he dropped down to 19th on the opening lap, made his way up to 9th, but still just not that joy. I mean, Lewis, for so much of his career, even on the difficult days, if he'd had a good fight, he just exuded this limitless passion and joy in Formula One that just seems like he's lost recently.
Yeah, but the battle and the fight was still there. From the mid phase of the race onwards, you know, and he changes his demeanour in the car wheel to wheel when he's got the car underneath him. You know, as soon as he feels like he's got traction, and I've seen him squirm around all year so far in that Mercedes with the rear, as soon as he's got the car underneath him, he starts to attack again.
So doesn't have the car underneath him, thinks it's slow, loved to turn 9 overtake.
Yeah, very, very impressive, wasn't it?
Loved it.
Round the outside, snatching the inside apex of turn 9. And I mean, that's the thing, you know, that's something that it's very difficult to do without a decent balance in the car. They're obviously moving through a window with that Mercedes, much like we saw with last year's car, where the window of the car's tiny. And it must be incredibly frustrating, and I think that's probably where some of that palpable frustration comes from, when you know, in theory, that you potentially could have taken home better results from the previous Grand Prix, but in practice it's just not been possible because car setup has not supported car design.
We've got to talk about Fernando Alonso, because we talk about great drives. Weird strategy, really weird strategy, but in the end gave us Fernando on fresh mediums, last laps of the race, belting through the field and almost losing it through the final corner. What a heart-in-mouth moment. Brown flag at the final corner. Incredible.
I've not seen anyone spaghetti arms a Formula One car like that for a little while.
Testing the structural integrity of his underpants with that one.
He was fully wrapped around the steering wheel with that one.
All arms and elbows.
All arms and elbows. But great to see him pushing so hard. He's been pushing really hard all weekend, Fernando, and outperforming the car. You know, he's really been outperforming the car. You can see that with the delta to his teammate. I don't know what they were trying to achieve with the strategy. Quite clearly, they were trying to do something different. But, you know, perhaps we can talk to him and find out.
Producer Joe has just exclaimed down my ear, and happy birthday, Producer Joe, by the way. Producer Joe has just exclaimed down my ear, oh, and what reactions for a 42-year-old. 43, Joe, not drawing the pension yet. We're not all in Zimmer frames when we hit 40, honestly.
Yours is...
I mean, my reactions have always been terrible.
We won't tell them yours is behind the camera.
But when you consider... Look, for years, Formula One has all been about got to get the young drivers in, got to get them in early, got to get them in young. Fernando, let's be honest, he's the oldest F1 driver we've had for many, many years at this level, and at that level is exceptional.
Yeah, and a lot of people would take aim at the sport in that way and say it's because they don't push for the whole race anymore. I'd like to throw you back to Qatar last year when Fernando Alonso was spick and span getting out of the car. He is on it. You know, he's got a skincare routine to die for, and he's got all the fitness, and he just keeps on going for it. It's really, really impressive, and the fight's still in him, isn't it?
It really is. Let's hear from Fernando Alonso.
Well, Fernando, you predicted ahead of the race that you'd end up P7, but what a route to get there, P2 by the end of the first lap. I thought you were going to crash in the last corner at one point. What a crazy race. How did you see it?
Yeah, definitely crazy race. A lot of things happened for us in the race. As you said, great start, P2, the first couple of laps. Then a few safety cars that probably didn't help our strategy and make the others save the tires a little bit and last until the end. We had to make another stop, yes. So, yeah, that was not ideal, but at the end, nearly crashed, but then fastest lap and P7. So all in all, I think a good weekend.
I was a bit shocked when you put the soft tires on. You happy with that strategy in the way that allowed you to fight back through the field?
Yeah, we only have one hard tires, and in the middle of the hardest thing, the safety car came. So let's say our good race tire was gone in a way after that safety car. So yeah, we didn't have any more options. So yeah. Let's see, maybe next time we don't race the sprint, we save tires, and we have more race for Sunday. Like this, we don't have even a strange penalty.
Interesting. So it was a strange penalty for Lance at the end there. Interesting. Daniel Ricciardo being hit by Lance, up on his nose, sliding under the back of Oscar Piastri. And we believe that as the car hit the deck again, just popped up, hit the back of Piastri's car, did damage to the diffuser. The team radioing to Oscar Piastri, who ultimately finished behind Alonso in P8, that he had, they said, significant damage to the back of the car. Considering that, what a job do you think he did today?
Yeah, a very good job. He didn't make it like Norris did to the virtual safety car to get a cheap pit stop, which was a bit of a shame for his strategy. That is not a big hit for Piastri, but it's a very critical area of the car, one of the most critical areas of the car in terms of downforce, sealing up the diffuser. We didn't really get a look at quite how much damage there was, but for him to ask the team over the radio rather than them to tell him, it's clear that it was a feeling that he had from behind the steering wheel, and you have to lose a reasonable amount of downforce before the driver can feel it and report it to the team like that.
So Oscar Piastri with damage, Lando Norris driving superbly to a P2. Amy is with Andrea Stella.
Andrea, congratulations on Lando's podium, the second one of this season. He's had a dominant weekend, hasn't he, with the P1 in the sprint pole, and then, of course, P4. He's just been unstoppable, hasn't he?
Yes. And all this, having said that this would have been a difficult weekend for us, so clearly we need to revise a little bit our expectations. But jokes apart, I think strong weekend. in all conditions. I mean, the pole position for the sprint qualifying was in wet, effectively. Then qualifying performance strong in dry conditions as well. We were expecting the race, though, to be more difficult because we saw in the sprint already that the degradation was high. We thought Ferrari would, at some stage, pass us. But in reality, nice surprise. Maybe the cold conditions helped. But ultimately, the car, I think, was well set up. Some tweaks we made after the sprint, I think it helped today. And then Lando drove like absolutely brilliantly. And let me also acknowledge Oscar because he had a damaged car, a significant loss of aerodynamic load, yet he managed to score important points for the team. So overall, very positive, well done to both drivers.
How much will that damage hurt you looking ahead to Miami? Is it significant?
The damage to Oscar's car? No, the damage, I mean, is to a part of the car that we will see if it can be repaired, but anyhow it will be replaced. So it's not a problem for Miami. Actually, in Miami we will go with some upgrades of the car. So hopefully we will take a little step forward and we can confirm the important results that we have achieved here in China.
And the second podium is another step closer, isn't it, to that elusive first win?
It's another step forward. It's another step closer, as you say. I'm not sure how many times Lando has finished second, maybe 8 or something. So it's really time for him to step on the highest step of the podium because he deserves it. Like an amazing driver. I've said many times, it's up to us at McLaren to give him an Oscar, a car that he can fight for wins, and I'm sure he's going to do the job.
He can't be the bridesmaid forever. Surely he's got to be the bride soon.
We all wish so, yeah.
Thank you so much. Well done.
Thank you. Thanks.
Lovely to hear from Andrea Stella. Even lovelier to hear the dulcet tones of Amy Overy. Fantastic. Amy, a big part of our team who you don't really ever get to see, but we couldn't do our shows without her, and she's fantastic. So great to hear from Amy with the brilliant questions to Andrea. It really was a great weekend for Lando. We'll talk about him a little bit more later, but as Amy said, the sprint pole in the wet. Okay, he had that lunge at turn 1 and it went a bit wrong in the sprint for him, but decent pace there, mega pace today. That win's got to be coming.
Yeah, definitely. The virtual safety car put him in the right place today. But the speed he had after that, I really expected Sergio Perez to be able to catch him, actually, through the end of the race. When you look at the pace Verstappen had throughout the whole Grand Prix, I expected Perez to turn up at the gearbox of the McLaren, but Lando drove a stormer then to hold him off. And it was holding him off by some margin, actually, when you look at the flag. So they'll be very much buoyed by that. The McLaren has improved even through the weekend, hasn't it? In terms of certainly its race performance. And the sprint quali attempt was not too bad either at all, was it, from Lando?
Tyres pretty much the same age on Verstappen, on Norris and on Perez for that final stint of the Grand Prix. As you say, the pace that he put in comparison to Perez, let's not include Max in this. Max is just doing things that seem superhuman at the moment in that car. But to not just match Perez, but to best Perez over those last 20, 25 laps was something else.
Yeah, and that's in the driver's hands. It's all about management of the temperatures of the various corners of the car and making sure that the tyres stay with you. There were a lot of incredulous drivers, weren't they, when they were all told they needed to go from mid-distance to the end of the Grand Prix on a set of tyres. But Lando managed it beautifully. Perez, we've heard talk a lot this year about tyre degradation, his difficulties with tyre degradation and the difference between him and Max throughout a race distance on being able to manage the tyre. Lando bested him, definitely, today in terms of that skill.
And McLaren, of course, were not expecting a good weekend, were they? As they've said throughout this weekend, it seems every weekend we think it's going to go terribly, goes great, and every weekend we think it's going to go great, goes terribly. Talking about not such a great weekend, McLaren had expected to have their mirrors full and have to be fighting the Ferraris, given the pace of those Scarlet cars in the sprint yesterday. As it was, the Ferraris couldn't hold a candle to the McLarens today. Amy has caught up with Fred Vasseur.
Fred, frustratingly close to a podium today. Were you expecting more from the race?
More in terms of position, I don't know, because we are not starting in a good place on the grid, but from a good place on the grid, but at least more from the pace. we clearly had a lack of pace today, and we have to understand why and to improve for next week or next race. But it was not an easy event. We didn't put the medium and the hard before, and so. But it's not an excuse at all. We have to do a better job, and we will be back in Miami.
But perhaps a word about Charles opening up that opportunity there.
No, but I think Charles that he had a strange race because that we started for 2 stops and then 1 stop, and I think we were a bit in between to push and to be conservative, and at the end we are paying the price. But okay, it is like it is. We had a decent pace on Saturday. I think that we were not that far away of Red Bull, and today it was much more difficult, and we need to understand why.
And looking ahead to Miami, it's a very different race, very different conditions.
I hope so.
How are you feeling more optimistic looking ahead?
You know, it's from the beginning of the season. Perhaps that you can consider Max apart, but behind Max, it's very, very tight. You are, I think, on the quali, you had 6 or 7 cars in 1/10. And for details, you can start from the first row or from P9. That it means that we have to avoid to do prediction and forecast, and just to be focused on the job and to do a better job than this weekend.
Fingers crossed. Thanks, Fred.
Thank you.
Fred hoping for a better weekend in Miami. He's looking forward to it. We're looking forward to it. You can be there too. Tickets still available for the Miami Grand Prix. So we hope to see you there. Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, again, not the race result they would have wanted. Leclerc playing with the clever strategy. Again, doing a grand job there. Sainz, though, almost getting caught by Russell at the death.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they lost out a little bit of the benefit that they had from being able to run long on the tyre, because everybody got the opportunity to stop with the various safety cars and virtual safety cars that we had. Sainz, of course, missing out on the opportunity to do that. There just wasn't quite the speed. They looked to have ramped a little bit more downforce on the car today. They needed to be running at Lando's pace, and they weren't through the end of the Grand Prix.
But for George Russell, we've spoken about Lewis Hamilton. George seemingly quite a lonely race, but almost there with the Ferraris.
We saw him wander straight through with his helmet on, didn't we?
He didn't look happy.
Like he really didn't look happy. Yeah, kind of the only driver sort of 5th position back who didn't have a barnstormer of an interesting race, to be honest. Relatively lonely stuff, didn't have the pace to push forward. In a similar position to the Ferrari of Sainz, to be fair. Missed the boat a bit on strategy, and then didn't have the pace to do anything about it on track.
Interesting weekend. So your top 10, Hülkenberg P10 for the time being, Lewis Hamilton P9, Piastri P8, then Alonso 7th, Russell 6th, Sainz 5th, Leclerc 4th. Your top 3, Sergio Perez in 3rd, Lando Norris in 2nd, Max Verstappen, your race winner. Let's hear from your top 3.
Another podium for you in the books, another strong day. How happy are you with the result?
Yeah, obviously it's a good result to finish off the weekend with 2 or 3 places, but today I wanted more. I did expect a little bit more from the race. You know, the sprint looked very promising, but today we just were not able to capitalize on the results. I think we did some changes that potentially took us away some of the performance. I think we were a little bit worse than we were earlier on the weekend.
Despite that good momentum building, do you feel that first win for you is starting to come closer?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're having a lot stronger weekends. You know, we are on a par on FP1 qualifying. You know, I think it's just a matter of being able to lead from lap 1 and be able to do our own race. That hopefully that will come soon.
Thank you. Well, and going into the race, I quote, you said you had no chance of a podium. Yeah, here we are, another Lando Norris
correct.
Podium in the books.
But I was also wrong.
How do you feel after that one?
I mean, great, obviously, very surprised, pleasantly surprised. I think our pace took it was a big improvement comparing to yesterday. So I don't think that we were wrong in our estimations prior to the race. Every bit of evidence that we had in terms of the race yesterday pointed no reason for us to believe that we would have good pace today. But a lot cooler track conditions, better wind conditions, and a better position for me. You know, I didn't drop back to 7th or 8th this time. I had a good turn 1, turn 2. I could get ahead of the Aston. I could control the race myself, and that seemed to make a very big difference today. So the pace was strong. But like I said, a little bit surprising, but of course, to finish on the podium is always a great day.
Outperformed your expectations today. Updates coming on the car for the next race in Miami. Does that give you a lot of optimism that there's this momentum building within the team like there was last year?
It's not building, it's been there for a long time. So no, nothing needs to build, nothing needs to be like that. I've had confidence in the team for a long time. I've had faith that we can improve for a long time, and we have been improving for a long time. So we've had a good start to the year. We've continued to show that, and we've got good things coming. So the optimism remains there.
Congratulations. Well, Max, another indomitable performance from you. How was it out there? Was it just all plain sailing?
It was a pretty good day, yeah. I mean, I think we improved the car a little bit, you know, from the sprint race yesterday into qualifying, and I could feel that also today in the race, where I think it was just a little bit more consistent to drive. Yeah, I mean, any compound, I was very happy. It's still, you know, this track is very heavy on the tires, so I was still, of course, managing around that to make the stint length work. But yeah, it was an incredible weekend where it was really enjoyable to drive the car.
I imagine when you're out front like that, it's just about rhythm and being metronomic. Then with the safety cars that we had, is it annoying when it breaks your rhythm and you're just in the flow?
I mean, of course it was annoying. I mean, I just built up quite a lead already. But at the other hand, also, I wasn't too worried because I felt really good with the car. So I knew that I just needed to have a clean restart and then just focus on myself, because it looked like that we had a bit more pace compared to the others.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Your top 3 then for the Chinese Grand Prix. A quick word for Sergio Perez. Showed well throughout the weekend. Couldn't quite get it done though. Didn't quite have that pace. To be on pace with Max Verstappen, maybe we don't expect that given how phenomenally Max is driving. Was it a surprise though that he couldn't match Lando in those closing laps?
I think it's an acceptable job again, isn't it, from Sergio? But there will be questions asked. He must ask questions of himself about why he wasn't able to catch Lando in those final laps of the race. But yeah, he's holding on to it. He's hanging on to it, and he's delivering acceptably to continue the claim to that seat next year. That edge of pace needs still to come.
What if the level of the Red Bull is Sergio and Max is just superhuman? And any other driver would be doing what Sergio's doing in that car, and Max is just something else.
There's a history that bears that out, even, you know, when you look back at the great drivers that have shared that garage with Max Verstappen. You know, Sergio Perez is doing a creditable job at Red Bull, that's for sure. And he said this week, anybody next to Max Verstappen is always going to have more pressure on them than anyone else in the field. It's the toughest job in Formula One to be across the garage from him, and he's doing a very, very good job of it, in my opinion.
Max, absolutely sensational today, as indeed he is. We don't expect any less from the 3-time Formula One world champion. We go to Miami next. Here is where you can catch everything over the weekend as we return to the United States. Weekend warm-up at 5:30 local time on Thursday, the 2nd of May. Before, and folks, don't forget, it is another sprint weekend. So we roll into practice 1 at 12:15 local time on Friday, then sprint qualifying at 4:15. Then onto Saturday, the 4th of May, your F1 sprint at 11:20 a.m. qualifying at 3:30 before race day itself. Sunday the 5th of May, 2:50. Your Formula One Crypto.com Miami Grand Prix. You can join me and Laura Winter and Alex Jakes and Lawrence Barretto and the Mayor of Hinchtown, James Hinchcliffe, returns to the fold for the Miami Grand Prix. Sam Collins in the studio as always. And we've got F1 Academy over the weekend as well. Looking forward to seeing if anyone can match the phenomenal pace shown by Dorian Pain on that first weekend. Alex, it's been a great weekend. Have you enjoyed yourself?
Really have. What a great atmosphere here. Utterly incredible weekend and a great race at the end of it.
It has been phenomenal. Thank you, mate, for your insight, your input. It's been wonderful this weekend, as always. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Our thanks also, of course, to Lawrence Barretto, to Greg Stewart in the pen, to Amy Overy with the question. She's hiding behind the camera because she's getting all shy. We're going to turn the camera around, and in fact, we won't do that, Amy, don't worry. Our thanks to the whole crew, both here and back at home. Our thanks, most of all, to all of you for watching as Formula One returned to Shanghai. It has been a brilliant weekend. Max Verstappen, peerless. Lando Norris, the big surprise of the weekend, but the hero, as it was always going to be, Zhou Guanyu. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We will see you next time in Miami. For now, though, from all of us here, it's a very warm goodbye.
Welcome to Miami.
Let me introduce you to the 20 best drivers in the world.
The home support is amazing.